It's Tom's Take number 200, and we're going to go over the 3 most watched episodes and retake each one of them next on Tom's Take. You're definitely going to want to watch this one. I cannot believe we are at episode number 200. We've been doing this for over 4 years. It's a lot of work, a lot of takes, if you want to call it that, and a lot of information hopefully we shared with the people that are watching. So big thank you to everyone that's tuned in for one episode, a half an episode, all 200, everyone in between. And I'm really excited to go over our 3 most watched episodes because when you look at them, the 3 most watched episodes are as relevant as they were when we filmed them and probably even more relevant today, and give you a retake on each one of them as we go through. So let's jump right in. The number 1 most watched episode of Tom's Take is number 79 from August 2018. And here's the kicker. It was 2020 market predictions. So it probably had something to do with everything that's happened over the past 12 months. And some of the predictions I found pretty interesting. I'll run down a few of them with you and we can talk about how relevant they are today. So the first one was from Ivy Zellman, who said that housing's going to weather the storm in 2020. And the preface here is that we were going to see an economic downturn in 2020, which we did for a little bit. And now things have kind of ramped back up, as we know, as we've talked about on tons and tons of shows in the past. So really great observation by Ivy. I would imagine she didn't expect a global pandemic to be part of this. Zillow's senior economist said a housing crisis was unlikely. Also correct. Pretty wild, because even though we had that blip in the radar, that 60-day period where real estate sales tanked, the second quarter was tough. We've seen historically a really robust real estate market in 2020, so another accurate observation. First American, so the title company that's out there, they're one of the big national title companies, they predicted that any recession is not going to be housing related. Right again, it was all related to the global pandemic and COVID-19. And a couple other predictions that we talked about were that another crash won't be repeated in housing, and people should invest in their home and invest in residential real estate. The latter one there, think about commercial real estate right now as opposed to residential real estate. People are investing in their homes more because that's the only place they're staying. They're spending most of their time in their properties, and residential real estate's on the rise. And commercial real estate's going through a tough time right now because people are working remote. Companies are closing, businesses are closing. So all of these predictions in 2020 were pretty accurate with the exception of one. A lot of people thought rates were going to go up. At the time they were in the mid 4s. Guess what? That one was 100% wrong. Looks like rates are probably going to go up in the future, as we've talked about on previous Tom's Take episodes. That's the only one out of the 6 that I wrote down here that was off base. So overall, pretty accurate information. I can see why a lot of people would have tuned back into that. And it's always interesting when you look at predictions because predictions are based on what we know now. And a lot of these came true, probably not for the reasons that they did, because no one expected a global pandemic. So a lot of cases, the economic downturn that people were forecasting just had to do with an economic cycle, not COVID-19. So I find this really, really interesting that all this stuff was right and for a very different reason. The second most watched episode was number 156 from March 3rd this past year. So the kind of beginning of the year in 2020. And it was about the pandemic. And the big talking point in the episode was real estate will not be negatively affected in the long term. Again, absolutely right. Now, that was my take on it. That wasn't some expert opinion. I mean, I guess I'm an expert. I mean, you tell me, you're the one watching the show. And I'm only like a third kidding there. But what we talked about in that episode was don't buy into the noise. Continue with your plan because your plan to move shouldn't be affected by what happens in the short term. And maybe look at investing in some stocks or doing some investment because there was a period of time there, especially March and April, not so much May, where you could buy low on a lot of things. And overall, despite the craziness that's going on the past 9-10 months here, despite the fact that we're in the 2021 with this COVID-19 pandemic, what I know is that's all pretty accurate information. Anyone that didn't buy into the noise and bought a home when things were shut down or it was really hard to buy to go look at properties, they probably made out pretty well. Then what happened after that when the market went bananas? when June, July, August, homes were selling above the asking price, multiple offers, super competitive. So great piece of advice there. Doing what's best for your family and your household and sticking with your plan, I don't think is ever more important than it is right now. And looking at investing in some things based on the buy low, sell high philosophy, I mean, that works every time. So pretty interesting, again, pretty relevant to the times that we're in, and I imagine that built up the view count on each of these episodes. And the third one, the third most watched, I actually like the most because it spawned something totally different, and that's what this show is all about. So it was episode number 17 from June 2017. So we started this at the beginning of 2017, and it was about challenges that a new agent faces, and it had to do with time management, accountability, thinking real estate is easy. And that is such a relevant topic, and to me, it was almost taking away from what we're doing here, because this show is all about giving consumers the right information, getting an expert opinion on what that means for our local market, and those topics, they're not that relevant to consumers. They're not that relevant to people that are looking to buy or sell real estate unless they maybe want to get into real estate, and that's a different story. So we launched a totally separate show called Agent Hacks. We're up to episode 143, 144 now. And that one is equally as interesting, equally as engaging, same format, but it's not the same audience. What I know about today's world and what I know about educating the consumer is they're worried about their situation, not what it means to be a real estate agent. So we have a totally separate show dedicated towards that because it wasn't the right audience. To me, that's what a great educational piece does, is it spawns other topics. It spawns other conversations, and there was a need for that in the marketplace. And knowing that one of our core values is service, it's not just serving the consumers in the area, it's also serving the agent community. I'm just as proud with the volume of Agent Hacks episodes that we've put out as I am with this, and it serves someone completely different. So really cool stuff, and I think it's really relevant when you look at the episodes that were the most watched because it really affected people a lot this year. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. That's what's holding sellers back from the market. That's what's holding buyers back from the market. So very interesting, very relevant what the most watched episodes are. And I just want to thank everyone that's tuned in again. I want to thank all the people that inspired us to do this. I remember I got the idea. I was in Charleston. It was the fall of 2016. And we just said, hey, we're coming out with a weekly video show for consumers to keep them educated because the consumer deserves better. And we're going to be just as committed to the next 200 episodes as we were to these. Thanks again, all the people that helped inspire me to do this. Now we've got Nick behind the scenes. Things have evolved. If you look at the first couple episodes, they were really bad. It was like me on my iPhone with a wired mic. So we've come a long way, and we're going to deliver even better value for the next 200. Thanks again. That's it. Episode 200. It's in the can. Definitely going to want to watch this one.